Hey, Reddit. I need to get this off my chest because there's no one to talk to about it in real life. This is long, messy, and sounds like a bad soap opera, but it's my life. Or what I thought was my life. My name is Jacob, 29. I grew up in what seemed, on the surface, like a typical middle-class American home in Ohio. My parents, Brad and Linda, always seemed like the perfect couple. They met in college, married at 23, had me at 25. Dad was an engineer, Mom was an elementary school teacher until I started school, then she became a librarian. They rarely argued in front of me, went to neighborhood barbecues together, had dinner at the same Italian cafe every Saturday. They called each other honey and sweetheart, kissed when leaving for work. I, like all kids, thought this was normal and sometimes even boring, dreaming of a more exciting life. But at the foundation of this normality lay one strange, undiscussed fact. I didn't have a single photo of them together where they looked younger than, say, 25. The wedding album? Never saw it. Mom said it got lost during a move. Engagement photos? Young lovers against autumn leaves? Nope. There were childhood photos of me, photos of my parents separately in their youth, but together, it was as if their history started with my birth. Questions arose in my teenage years. Dad, how did you propose to Mom? Oh, at a good old fast food joint, with the ring and the fries. It was funny. The story sounded rehearsed. Mom, where did you go for your honeymoon? Oh, we were poor students, just went to the Great Lakes for a couple of days. The details were always vague. I chalked it up to their modesty. Maybe they were embarrassed about their youth. Maybe the wedding was humble, and they were shy about it. I grew up, moved to Chicago, got a job as a graphic designer, started my own life. My relationship with Emily, now my fiancée, was the complete opposite. We documented every step on social media, argued fiercely and made up passionately. Our stories were loud and vibrant. My parents approved of Emily, but their quiet, steady union became for me a kind of benchmark of stability, which I secretly aspired to. Everything changed 3 weeks ago. Mom asked me to help clean out their attic as they were preparing for a renovation. Dad was on a business trip. Mom and I were drinking coffee, going through boxes of my old toys and textbooks. And then I stumbled upon an inconspicuous cardboard box labeled Memoirs, in my mom's handwriting. What's this? I asked. Oh, just some junk, old papers. Mom waved her hand, but I noticed her fingers trembling slightly. Better look in that box, your childhood drawings are there. Let's have a look, I insisted, suddenly intrigued. Maybe your love letters to Dad are in here? We could tease him. Mom laughed, but it was a nervous laugh. Don't, Jacob, it's really boring stuff. Bills, old recipes. But my curiosity was piqued. I jokingly pulled the box toward me. Come on, Mom, I'm an adult. Maybe I'll find something that will help me understand the mysterious nature of marriage. I opened the flaps. On top were indeed old bills and some newspaper clippings. And underneath, several thick photo albums with dark burgundy covers, the kind that were popular in the 90s. Mom froze. The color drained from her face. Jacob, please, don't. But it was too late. I opened the first album. The first pages were filled with photos of my mother in college. She was beautiful. Long blonde hair, laughing eyes, in some photos with friends, in others, with a tall guy. I looked closer. It wasn't my father. This guy had dark curly hair and a predatory, confident smile. He was hugging my mom. They were kissing against the backdrop of a university campus. They were sitting cuddled on the hood of an old car. On the back of one photo was written, with Liam. My love, spring 1994. Liam? Who's Liam? I kept flipping. The photos became more serious. Here they were in a more formal setting, at some reception. Here's Mom in a beautiful dress. Not a wedding dress, but an evening gown, and Liam in a tuxedo. Their connection was palpable in every frame. This wasn't a fleeting youthful fling. This looked serious. Mom, who is this man? I asked, and my voice sounded muffled in the dusty attic air. She was silent, looking at the floor, gripping the edge of her cardigan. I kept flipping, and my heart sank to my stomach. I came across a wedding photo. It was my mom, young, radiant, in a white 90s-style dress with a small bouquet. And next to her, not Brad, my father. Next to her was Liam, the same guy with dark curls. They were standing under a flower arch, looking at each other in a way I had never seen my parents look at each other. In that gaze was all-consuming passion, adoration, a future. The world around me swam. I turned page after page. Here they are cutting the cake. Here's their first dance. Here's mom in her wedding dress laughing with her girlfriends. Here they are driving away in that same old car with cans and a "just married" sign. You were married? Before dad? I whispered. The thought seemed incredible. Why did they hide it? Why was it a secret? Mom looked up at me. There were tears in her eyes. It was a mistake, Jacob. A youthful mistake. He died. Soon after the wedding. A bolt from the blue. I leaned back against an old dresser. Her first husband died. That was tragic, sad, but understandable. Why hide it? Because of the pain? Mom, I'm sorry, I said, feeling awkward about my curiosity. But why did you never talk about it? It's part of your life. It hurts to remember, she said simply, wiping her cheek. And your father, he doesn't like to talk about it. It's hard for both of us. Please, just close the album. Forget what you saw. Something in her tone was off. Too insistent, too frightened. I closed the album, but my gaze fell on the next one in the box. It was thinner. I opened it automatically. And then my breath caught. On the very first page was a photo of my mother. She was clearly pregnant. She was standing in a sunny room, hands on her big, round belly, smiling at the camera. Next to her, with his arm around her shoulders, stood Liam. He was looking at her belly with such reverence and pride that it was visible even through the yellowed photo paper. On the back was written, 34 weeks. Our treasure. June 1995. June 1995. I was born in March 1996. A 9-month difference. But from whom? I stared at the photo for a long time, trying to force my brain to come up with a logical explanation. A mistake in the date? No, the handwriting was my mom's, neat. Duplicate ultrasound photos lying nearby were marked with the same month and year. Mom, my voice sounded alien, strained. What is this? She came over and looked at the photo. Her face became completely impassive, a mask behind which a storm was raging. Close the album, Jacob. Right now. Who is this? I jabbed my finger at the picture. Who's in your belly? She didn't answer, just reached out to snatch the album from my hands. But I didn't let go. A primal, animal need to know had awakened in me. You were pregnant? By him? By Liam? What happened to the baby? The question hung in the air. Mom sank onto an old trunk, her shoulders slumped. She looked not just upset, but broken. The baby was born, she said quietly. A boy. And then it started to dawn on me. Very slowly, like an ice block sliding into warm water. A boy was born. In 1995, 9 months before my birth. Where is he? I asked, already guessing the answer. Maybe given up for adoption? Maybe he lives somewhere else? Mom looked up at me. In her eyes were pain, fear, and bottomless fatigue. He's right here, she whispered. Jacob, it's you. Time stopped. The sounds from the street, a dog barking, kids shouting, were drowned out by a roar in my ears. I looked at the photo of the pregnant woman, at the face of the man I had never seen, and tried on the word, son. His son, not Brad's. No, escaped me. That's impossible. My birthday. My documents. We changed them. Mom's voice was monotone, as if reciting a long memorized text. You were born in June 1995. Your father, your biological father, Liam, died in a car crash 2 weeks after this photo. He never saw you. I was left alone with a newborn. I was 24 years old. I was silent, unable to utter a word. She continued, the words now flowing like a river, as if she had been waiting for this moment her whole life. Brad was our mutual friend. Since high school, he always had a thing for me. When it happened, he helped me. Did the shopping, stayed with you when I was on the verge of a breakdown. We grew close. He offered a way out. He said he would raise you as his own. But for that, we needed to start with a clean slate. Move to another state where no one knew us. Say we were married, that you were our shared child, born in wedlock. We changed your birth certificate through a doctor we knew. It was easier than you think back then. We got married quietly, without a ceremony, when you were 8 months old. And we moved here. Our entire shared history, our college romance, it was all a legend we memorized. I jumped to my feet. The attic suddenly felt cramped, oppressive. So Brad isn't my father? He is your father in every way that matters. My mom's voice held a desperate conviction. He raised you, taught you to ride a bike, went to parent-teacher conferences, paid for your college. He loves you, Jacob. Liam. Liam was a whirlwind, passion. But Brad, that was a choice. The choice to be your father. And why did you never tell me? My whole life, I shouted, unable to hold back. To protect you. To give you a normal, stable life. Without the label of illegitimate, without whispers behind your back. So you wouldn't feel different. She stood up too, her eyes blazing. You were protecting yourselves. I blurted out. You were ashamed. A single mom, quickly marrying a friend. You built a life on a lie. On a whole factory of lies. And I all these years thought I was part of this perfect puzzle. And I'm not even his. I climbed down from the attic, slamming the hatch shut. Mom called after me from above, but I didn't turn back. I got in my car and drove off, not knowing where. A kaleidoscope of memory fragments swirled in my head. Brad teaching me to tie my shoes. His going to baseball games. His calm, firm advice. His pride when I got into college. All that love, all those moments, were they real? Or was it just a well-played role? The role of a father he voluntarily took on to get my mother? I didn't go home to Emily. I couldn't look her in the eye with this burden. I booked a motel on the highway and spent the night feverishly Googling everything I could. How to change a birth certificate in the 90s. Searched for Liam's name, but found nothing. Liam who? Liam what last name? I didn't even know that. In the morning, I got messages from Mom, please, let's talk, and from Brad, son, Mom told me everything. Call when you're ready. I love you. The word, son, in his text cut like a knife. I didn't reply. Instead, I drove to the city library where Mom worked. I needed answers, not excuses. I found her in the cataloging department. I need everything, I said, without preamble. His full name, how he died, where he's buried, where you lived, everything, or I'll start looking myself, and you don't know where that will lead. She understood the ultimatum was serious. We sat in her tiny office, and she, avoiding my gaze, began to speak. His name was Liam Miller. They met freshman year. It was love at first sight, intense, all-consuming. Married in their senior year. He was going to be an architect. They bought a small house on the outskirts of Cleveland. The pregnancy was a happy time. The accident was caused by a drunk driver who crossed into the oncoming lane. Liam died instantly. Mom, who was in the same car, got off with bruises and shock. And I, thank God, remained unharmed in her belly. She spoke about him with such warmth, such pain, which I had never heard in her stories about Brad. And in that moment, I understood the full depth of the betrayal. Not her betrayal towards me. In some twisted sense, I could understand her attempt to give me a normal life. I understood the betrayal towards Brad. He loved her, his whole life, and she married him out of convenience, not out of love, to give her son by another man a last name and social protection. And Brad agreed to this deal. Agreed to be a shadow, a stand-in father, forever living in the shadow of the ghost of the perfect first husband, who died tragically and remained forever young and passionate. And did you love him, Brad? I asked directly. She cried. I appreciated him, respected him. He was my rock. But Liam was the love of my life. The kind you only have once. Those words finished me off completely. My father, no, Brad, had been the second choice his whole life. A consolation prize, a reliable backup plan, and he knew it. He always knew it. I left the library with a name on a piece of paper, Liam Miller. And with the address of an old cemetery in Cleveland. The drive to Cleveland took a few hours. I drove on autopilot, listening to loud, aggressive music, trying to drown out the chaos in my head. Liam Miller. The name echoed to the beat of my heart. My real father. The man whose genes I carry. Whom I never saw and never will see. Greenwood Cemetery was old, well kept. I wandered among the rows for a long time until I found a modest granite stone. Liam Jonathan Miller 1972–1995. Beloved husband and father. Rest in peace. The word, father, made my throat tighten. He was a father. For only a few months, not even knowing I was a boy, the ultrasound photo likely didn't show the sex. But he knew there would be a child. His child. Our child. I sat on the grass in front of the stone. What did I feel? Sadness? Yes, but a strange, abstract sadness, like for a stranger from a book. Anger? At the drunk driver, at the absurd accident that took this guy's whole life. And also, a burning sense of injustice. Why is he here, in the ground, while Brad lived his life all these years? Raised his son? Slept with his wife? And then it hit me. Was Brad just a friend? What if he had always loved my mom? What if he was waiting for his chance? And Liam's death became for him an opportunity? The thought was disgusting, and I immediately pushed it away. No, Brad wasn't like that. He was a good man. Too good to be true, as it turned out. I stayed at the grave for almost an hour, trying to imagine his voice, his laugh, to feel some connection. But I only felt the cold of the stone and emptiness. The only father I knew was alive and waiting for my call. And this one was just a shadow, a beautiful photograph from the past. On the way back, I stopped at the city archives. I needed proof, documents. I lied, saying I was doing genealogical research, and after some red tape, I got access to microfilms of newspapers from 1995. I found the article about the accident. Small, in a corner of the page. Young architect killed in DUI crash. There was even a small picture. Liam, his face, familiar to me now from the album, looked at me from the newsprint. My heart clenched. This was real. It was all real. I also found my original birth certificate. Male, name not given. Mother, Linda Ann Carter. Father, Liam Jonathan Miller. Date, June 17, 1995. Place of birth, Cleveland. And then, in a separate field, with a later stamp, amended. Father, Bradley James Stevenson. And a new birth date, March 15, 1996. A neat, official forgery. With these copies, cold and irrefutable, I returned home to Chicago. Emily was waiting for me in tears. Mom had apparently called her. My God, Jake, what's going on? Your mom said you had a big fight about something serious from the attic and you disappeared. I silently placed the printouts on the kitchen table in front of her. The wedding photo, the pregnant mom photo with Liam, the newspaper clipping, the birth certificates. She looked at them, eyes wide, whispering, "Oh, God. Oh, Lord, Jacob." And then I laid it all out for her. The whole story. My discovery, the conversation with my mother, the trip to the cemetery. I spoke monotonously, without emotion, as if reporting on a stranger. Emily listened without interrupting. When I finished, she hugged me. Tightly, silently. And in that embrace, something in me broke. I burst into tears. For the first time in those 3 days. I sobbed like a child into her shoulder, and she stroked my back, repeating, "I'm here. I'm with you. We'll get through this." Who am I, I asked through tears. I'm not Jacob Stevenson. I'm some Jacob Miller who doesn't exist on paper. The man I called my father isn't my father. And my real father is a ghost. My life is a script they wrote for me. You are my Jacob, she said firmly. The one who laughs at my stupid jokes, who forgets to take out the trash, who does amazing design work and is afraid of spiders. Your DNA, your birth story, that's part of you, but it's not all of you. You build your own life. She was right, but to build further, I had to deal with the foundation. And for that, I needed a conversation with Brad. Not over the phone, face to face. I texted him a short message, "Coming tomorrow. We need to talk, just us, without Mom." He replied instantly, "Okay. I'll be waiting. I'm home." The next morning, I was back in Ohio. Mom opened the door, her face swollen from crying. She tried to say something, but I walked past her, straight into the living room where Brad sat by the fireplace. He looked like he had aged 10 years. He was holding a glass of water but not drinking. "Hi, son," he said quietly. "Don't call me that." I cut him off, stopping in the middle of the room. He flinched as if slapped and nodded. "Okay, Jacob, please, sit down." I remained standing. "Why?" I asked the single question that contained all the others. He sighed heavily, put down the glass, clasped his fingers. "Because I loved her, always, since high school. But she chose Liam. He was a star. I was just a friend. When he died, her world collapsed. And mine, my world, though full of sympathy for her, gained a ghostly chance. I offered help. Then more. Then, this plan. I knew it was madness. But I saw her suffering, her fear of the future alone with a child. And I thought, I can give her that. Give you that. Stability. A family. I got what I always dreamed of, to be with her. To be her father, even if under a different name. You built everything on a lie, I said, my voice trembling. You stole my right to know who I am. You stole Liam's fatherhood. Even on his grave, he's just beloved husband and father to me, not a real person. We wanted to protect you." Mom's voice came from the kitchen. She stood in the doorway, not daring to enter. "From what? From the truth? That my father was a good man who was waiting for me? That he died tragically? Is that a bad truth? Yes, it hurts, but it's honest. And you made me live in a beautiful, convenient, fake world." Brad looked up at me. There were no justifications in his eyes. Only deep, genuine sorrow. "You're right. We were selfish. I was selfish. I wanted this family so badly that I convinced myself it was for the best. That someday, when you were grown up, we would tell you everything. But the years passed, the lie grew flesh and blood, became reality. To confess meant to destroy everything we had built. To scare you, possibly to lose you, and we got scared. With each year, confessing became more terrifying. And you?" I turned to my mother. "Did you love him? At least later?" She cried. "I tried. God, how I tried. He was so kind to me, to you. But Liam, it's like a wound that never fully heals." Brad knew that. He accepted it. We lived with it quietly. I appreciated him. I respected him. But that passion, that madness, it died with Liam. And then I looked at Brad not as a deceiver, but as a man. At this quiet, devoted man who voluntarily took on another man's child and loved a woman who would never be fully his. Who agreed to be a permanent stand-in, a shadow in his own family's history. And for the first time in this situation, I felt not only my own pain, but his. A huge, quiet, daily pain. "What do we do now?" I asked, already quieter, without the previous anger. "That's up to you to decide, Jacob," Brad said. If you want to change your last name, restore the documents. We'll help, however we can. We'll give you everything we have for lawyers. If you want to see us, or not, we'll accept your decision." I looked at them, at my mother, torn between the memory of a past love and a duty to the present, and at the man who gave me his whole life without being obligated to do so. And the hatred slowly began to give way to another, more complex feeling, a bitter understanding. I didn't give an answer that day. I said I needed time. And I left. The next few weeks were a time of strange calm. I returned to Chicago, to Emily, to work. But I was different. As if a virus of doubt had infected all my memories, rewriting them with a new, bitter flavor. I caught myself studying my reflection in the mirror, searching my features, the shape of my eyebrows, the set of my eyes, for a resemblance to that guy in the photo, Liam. I found some possible parallels, but it could have been my imagination playing tricks. I scoured the internet, found a couple of his distant relatives on social media, but couldn't bring myself to write. What would I say? "Hi, I'm the son of your relative you might not have known about?" Emily became my anchor. She didn't push, she was just there. Sometimes we talked about it for hours, sometimes we spent days deliberately avoiding the topic, as if trying to reclaim a piece of normal life. She asked once, "What do you feel for Brad now?" I was silent for a long time. "I don't know. I'm angry at him, for being complicit in the lie. But, when I look at him now, I don't see a villain. I see a very unhappy, lonely in his grief man. He got what he wanted, a family. But at what cost? He was always in the supporting role in his own life. And he knew it, and agreed to it. How can you not love yourself that much?" "Love does strange things to people," Emily said quietly. My relationship with my mother was in limbo. We exchanged short, cautious messages. She sent photos of me as a child, some harmless memories, as if trying to patch the hole in our history with evidence of good moments. I replied sparingly. Her words about Liam being the love of her life hurt me. It devalued everything that came after. It devalued Brad, and, in a way, my existence in that after life. The turning point came unexpectedly. My Uncle Dave, Brad's younger brother, called. We'd always had warm, if not close, relations. He was a straightforward guy, a former Marine. "Jake, hey, listen, I know everything blew up over there. Brad told me everything, the whole story. I want to meet with you. Talk, not as an uncle, but as a neutral observer who knows a few things from the sidelines. Can you come?" We met at a sports bar near his house. Dave was already there, with 2 beers on the table. He looked serious. "How are you holding up?" he asked after a short silence. "Badly," I admitted honestly. "I don't know who to trust or what to feel." "I'll tell you what I know," Dave said. "Might help, might not." He took a sip of beer and began. "Brad was crazy in love with your mom. since high school, but he was a nerd, quiet. And Liam was a hurricane. Everyone loved him, and your mom, most of all. Brad suffered, but stayed close, like a loyal dog. We, the family, saw it. Told him, move on, find someone else. But he couldn't. When Liam died, God, it was awful. For everyone. But Brad, you know what he did? He was the first one at the hospital. He organized the funeral because your mom was in a complete stupor. He practically lived at your place then, with you, a baby, in his arms. Dave paused, looking at his mug. And then he came to us, to our parents, and said he was marrying Linda and adopting you. That you were moving away. Our parents were in shock. Mom cried, said, she doesn't love you, she's using you in her grief. You'll live with a ghost your whole life. And he looked at her and said, Mom, if I can make her life even a drop easier, and if I can give this boy a father, then it's worth it. Even if that drop is all I ever get. He was ready for crumbs. From the very beginning. My breath caught. I pictured that scene. Quiet, stubborn Brad, going against everyone for a ghost of a chance. He forbade us from ever talking about it, Dave continued. Said for you, he had to be the only father. The real one. We didn't approve, but it was his choice. And you know what, nephew? I saw how he fussed over you. How he lit up when you took your first steps, when you called him, Dada. For him, it wasn't a forgery. It was a miracle. He wasn't playing a father. He became one, heart and soul, with all the love, the worries, the pride. Liam gave you life. Brad gave you a childhood. Both parts matter. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, and the resentment crept back into my voice. A promise, Jake. I gave my word to my brother. And also, I saw what a good family you had become. On the surface. Didn't want to ruin it. Just like them. It's a vicious circle of lies with the damn best intentions. Talking to Uncle Dave didn't take away the pain, but it added dimension to the picture. Brad appeared not just as an accomplice, but as the main driver of this charade, motivated not by selfishness but by a tragic, self-destructive devotion. He didn't steal someone else's place. He filled a vacancy no one else could fill, and worked at it non-stop his whole life. A couple of days later, I received a package from my mother. No accompanying letter. Inside was that wedding album with Liam and a thick stack of letters, tied with string. The envelopes were addressed to her, the handwriting masculine, unfamiliar. Liam, she had sent me his letters. I couldn't bring myself to touch them for several days. They lay on the coffee table like an unexploded bomb. Finally, one evening when Emily was at a bachelorette party, I poured a whiskey, sat on the floor, and untied the string. The letters were dated from different periods, from the first months of dating to the time when she was already pregnant. They weren't just love letters. They were a window into that man's soul. He wrote about his dreams, to build a house by a lake with big windows. About how my mom laughed, and how that sound was like music to him. About the fear and awe of becoming a father. I'll teach him everything I know. We'll go hiking, and if it's a girl, I'll carry her in my arms until my legs give out. In one of the last letters, written a week before his death, he sketched a plan for a cradle he was building by hand. In the margin was a note, for our little treasure. Love you both endlessly. I cried. Bitterly, inconsolably. I cried for the father I never knew. For the life that could have been. For the love fate had robbed me of. But in those tears, there was no anger towards my mother or Brad. There was just a vast, cosmic sadness for the loss. And it was then that I understood the most important thing. They lied about the facts. About dates, names, legal statuses. But they did not falsify the main thing. Their love for me. In a strange, twisted, painful for everyone form, but it was real. Brad's love, deciding to become a father. My mother's love, trying to shield her son from pain and shame. Even Liam's love, captured in these letters. It too was part of my inheritance. I just received it 30 years late. I texted my mother. Briefly. Thank you for the letters. It was hard, but I needed to see them. She replied. He would have been so proud of you. Just like Brad. Just like me. And then I texted Brad. Not Dad. Just Brad, for now. I read Liam's letters. I understand now what you and Mom were trying to protect me from. That pain. But it seems pain is just the flip side of love. I need time to process everything. But I want you to know. I remember you teaching me to change a tire. How we watched Star Wars and ate popcorn. How you paid for my guitar lessons even though I quit after a month. Those moments, they're real. No matter what name is on the passport. He replied almost immediately, with a voice message. I could hear tears in his voice. Thank you, Jacob. That's enough. For now. I love you. Always. It was the first step. A step towards something new. Towards something that would no longer be a perfect picture, but might be honest. Cracked, scarred, but real. 6 months passed. Thanksgiving. We weren't planning a big family gathering. The tradition seemed buried along with the old lie. Emily and I planned a quiet dinner for two, maybe watch the parade on TV. I was still in that fragile space between son and not son, between anger and acceptance. A week before the holiday, Brad called me. Not texted, but called, which was rare. Jacob, hi. Sorry to bother you. It's okay. What's up? Nothing. I mean. He fell silent, choosing his words. I found something else. Not in the albums. In my old safe. If you don't mind, I could bring it. Or send it. It's for you. There was no plea in his voice, only caution, as if he had found an old, possibly live grenade and didn't know what to do with it. What is it? I asked. Letters. Mine. To you. The ones I never sent. The world paused for a second. His letters? To me? When? When did you write them? Always. Since you were little. When something happened, or I couldn't say something out loud. I wrote. Thought maybe I'd give them to you when you grew up. Then, it became too scary. I can burn them if you want. No, I replied faster than I expected. Bring them, please. He came 2 days before Thanksgiving. We met at a neutral place, a quiet coffee shop. He looked a little better than on the day of our confrontation, but a shadow of guilt still lived in his eyes. He handed me a small, worn shoebox, tied with string. Here, you don't have to read them. Just, they exist. I took the box. It was heavier than it looked. Thanks for bringing them, Jacob. He swallowed. Happy Thanksgiving. Whatever you decide. He left quickly, as if afraid of my reaction. I went home and placed the box next to the one containing Liam's letters. 2 fathers, 2 truths, 2 histories. I opened it only that evening. Inside were dozens of envelopes, stacked not by date but by size. The smallest and most worn were at the bottom. I took the first one. The envelope was plain, no stamp. On it, in a childish, careful hand, was written, to my son Jacob. For the future. The date in the corner, March 15, 1997. My first, official, birthday according to the new documents. I was 1. Dear Jacob, today you turned 1. You just smeared cake all over your face, in your hair, and on my new shirt. Your mom laughed, really laughed, for the first time in a long time. In that moment, I knew I had done everything right. Even if you ever hate me for this lie, that moment was worth it. I love you, son. Your dad, I hope you'll let me call myself that. I set the letter aside, feeling a lump in my throat. I took the next one. 2002. I was 6. Jacob, today you rode a bike without training wheels for the first time. You were yelling, Dad, look, look. And I looked, and my heart ached with pride. And with fear. Because I thought, what if Liam had seen this? He would have been proud too. Sometimes I think I feel him somewhere nearby. And I tell him in my thoughts, don't worry. I'll look after him. I'll do my best. It's strange, but it helps. Letter after letter. My first words, my childhood illnesses, you cried so loud the neighbors knocked on the wall, and I was just happy you had strong lungs. My school dramas, my teenage rebellions, you said you hated me. That's okay. I love you anyway, but please take out the trash. There were letters of another kind. Darker ones, clearly written in moments of despair. Jacob, today is the anniversary of Liam's death. Your mom spent the whole day in bed. I brought her tea, sat with her. She cried and called his name. And I sat and held her hand. Sometimes I hate myself for being here. For being alive when he's not. For drinking tea with his wife and raising his son. But then I go check on you while you sleep. And the hatred passes. All that's left is gratitude for this strange, dishonest, painful, and so precious chance. And the last letter, dated this year, after our attic conversation. Jacob, if you're reading this, it means you had the courage to open this box. Or the curiosity. I don't know which is worse. I don't ask forgiveness for my love for you. It's real. I ask forgiveness for building a house for that love on the sand of a lie. Your mom and I thought we were building a fortress. But it turned out to be a glass cage. And now that the glass is shattered, we're all cut. I hope your wounds heal faster than ours. Know that wherever you are and whoever you decide to be, for me you will always be that little boy who smeared cake on my shirt and made your mom laugh again. Always yours, Brad. I sat on the floor of the living room, surrounded by these sheets covered in his neat, engineer's handwriting. Liam's letters were full of fire, dreams, passion for the future. Brad's letters were chronicles of the present. Quiet, everyday, filled with doubt, pain, endless work, and such simple, imperfect, yet ironclad devotion. He wasn't trying to replace Liam. He just was there, every day, with all his weaknesses and insecurities. And his love for me wasn't romantic or tragic. It was practical, like a reliable foundation, which, it turned out, really withstood everything, even the explosion of truth. I picked up the phone, called my mother. Mom, I read Brad's letters. Silence on the other end. And, I want you to come. Tomorrow. For Thanksgiving. Together. She started crying. He won't dare. He'll think it's out of pity. Put him on the phone. A minute later, I heard his heavy breathing. Brad, I said, not letting him speak. I read about the cake. And the bike. And the trash. And everything else. He was silent. I can't forget the lie. And I probably never will be able to fully forgive it. But I also can't deny these letters. And all the days they represent. So let's try to start over. Not as father and son. Not yet. But as two adult men with a shared past. A complicated one. A painful one. But shared. Please come. There was a long pause. Then he whispered, almost inaudibly, okay. We'll come. They arrived in the afternoon. The atmosphere was nervous, tense. Emily, my guardian angel, took on the role of hostess, getting everyone settled in the kitchen with drinks, chattering about nothing. We sat down at the table. It was unusually quiet. No familiar toasts, no jokes. Then I stood up, raised my glass. I won't talk about gratitude. Now is not the time for standard speeches. But I want to say something else. At this table sit people who loved me as best they could. Sometimes strangely, sometimes causing pain, but they loved, and I am here because two men loved me. One, passionately and briefly. The other, quietly and for a long time. Both, in their own way. And both, truly. I don't know how to reconcile all of this within myself. But I want to try. To a new beginning. To honesty, however bitter. And to that very cake I smeared on a shirt. Brad looked at me, tears rolling down his cheeks. He nodded, unable to utter a word. Mom took his hand in hers. For the first time in many years, perhaps, that gesture looked not like a habit, but like a bond forged in shared grief, guilt, and, yes, shared love for me. It wasn't a happy ending. Not a return to the old, fake idol. It was a fragile truce. The beginning of a long and likely difficult work of building new relationships, transparent, with seams showing, but honest. Sometimes I think about Liam. I'm grateful for his letters, for his love that reached me like an echo through time. I bought that plot by the lake he dreamed of. Not to build a house, just to be there sometimes. To feel a connection. And with Brad, we talk now. For real. About the hard stuff. He taught me not to be afraid of spiders, and I'm teaching him graphic design software. We're not father and son in the classical sense. We're something else. Something unique and ours. With a history of betrayal and loyalty, intertwined into one inextricable knot. And you know what? Maybe that's what life is. Not in perfect social media pictures, but in these very knots. The main thing is not to be afraid to untangle them, even if the threads prick and break. Because inside, you might find something real. Maybe not what you expected. The end.